Monday morning came early and bright. Gabby headed for the front door, ready to get away from this place for a few hours. Aiden was sitting at the kitchen table, and as she walked by, he called out to her. She stopped and said kindly, "What's up?" Aiden said, "My phone is acting strange. Remember last Friday you said you sent me a text about being home late, but I never got it?" "Yeah." "Well, it just showed up this morning." "That's odd." "Yeah, this has happened a few times now. It says I have signal. Do you have your phone?" "Of course, I'm going to work." Aiden pressed his phone a bit and then put it to his ear. "Is it ringing?" Gabby took her phone out of her purse. "Doesn't look like it." Aiden took the phone away from his ear. "I think it went straight to voicemail. Do you see a call from me?" Gabby tapped on her phone. "No, I don't see anything." Aiden looked confused at his phone. "Strange. Maybe I should go to the store today?" He sighed as he put his phone away. "Though I doubt I'll have time before I go to the airport." "Well, there are stores on the coast. You'll figure it out. Anyway, I don't want to be late for work, so I gotta go. See you Friday." "You won't," Aiden said. "This trip is when we have that yearly weekend planning meeting. I won't get home for 2 weeks." Gabby was a little surprised. She walked over and hugged Aiden, who was still sitting. "Oh, I know you don't like those meetings. Sorry you have to go." Aiden shrugged and said with a small smile, "It's part of the job, you know." Gabby started to leave. "Love you. See you in 2 weeks." Aiden waved a little from his seat. "Have a good day. You look great, by the way." Gabby stopped, smiled, and glanced down at her white blouse and plaid skirt. "Thanks, I think so." She looked at her shiny high heels, which she loved, then brushed her stockings at their edge just below the short skirt's hem. "Glad you like it." She smiled at him again, then left and went to the garage. Her SUV was parked in the spot closest to the house, just a few steps away. She got in, pressed the button to open the garage door, started the engine, buckled up, put the car in drive, and soon was heading up the long, dusty driveway. She was leaving this big, dull place called The Ranch behind and heading back where there were people, shops, and places to eat. Well, a couple diners anyway. She still wondered why she ever thought living here would be fun. At first, it all sounded perfect. Just her and her new husband Aiden building their dream house on the big piece of land Aiden had gotten from his grandfather. They thought they'd live there like it was a paradise. But the truth was far from that. Aiden spent his days in the basement office or messing with his coin collection. They might work a little in the vegetable garden or walk by the big creek that ran through the woods. It was really boring. The closest small town, the one she was driving to now, was almost half an hour away. The nearest bigger town, with stores, restaurants, and even a movie theater, was more than an hour away. This place was so dull that when she heard the neighbors' cows making noise, it made her happy. It felt like something different was finally happening. Gabby smiled to herself as she thought about a new house her boss had just added to their list last week. It was a big, very remote place, much like her own house, but empty now. She and her co-worker Tom were going to sell it. They had visited the owner recently to start the process. The owner was going back east and didn't have anyone to look after the house. So Tom agreed to watch over it and get it ready for sale, which was normal for this kind of work. They talked about what was inside the house. The owner said they'd send a truck later to pick up what they wanted. Tom was allowed to start arranging things, moving furniture, and making the house look nice and ready for buyers. Gabby knew that she and Tom planned to go there today to get started. They would probably spend most of the day at the house and leave early in the morning. Her car made a strange ding sound. She looked at the dashboard and saw a light she didn't recognize. She wasn't sure what it meant, but knew she would need to take the car to Ted's shop soon. It had been a while since she had her car checked, and it felt like a good excuse to visit the shop again. The strong smell of new tires mixed with grease was everywhere. It smelled fresh, but also a bit messy, new and old at the same time. She was always surprised that the old cot didn't break with how hard Ted worked on things. She felt excited, thinking about choosing between spending the morning with her boss Tom or with her mechanic Ted. Maybe she would spend the morning with Ted and the afternoon with Tom. That might be how the day could go. She had a busy day ahead. Suddenly, her car started making strange sounds, a rattle or something like that. Now, spending the morning with Ted seemed even more likely. She reached the last big hill before the town, a steep climb on a road called Mountain Road. The SUV began losing power and making more noises, but she kept going. She pushed the gas pedal all the way down, trying to get over the hill, but the car just couldn't make it. She looked for a place to stop, but found none along the road. Finally, she turned into a gravel driveway and drove a little in past some trees. She slowly pulled the car to the side and turned it off. White smoke came out from under the hood. It had a strange, sweet smell that seemed somehow familiar. She took out her phone and called Aiden. He could come get her, drive her to work, and then take care of the car before Ted left for his trip. She thought maybe she would see Ted soon after, perhaps even look at houses with him. No problem there. But Aiden's phone went straight to voicemail. Oh, right. She remembered his phone had been acting up. So Ted was now first on the list. After a short ring, Ted answered, saying, "Ted's. Ted, it's Gabby Patrone. My car died. Can you come check it out?" "What happened?" "I don't know. It just stopped." "Any warning lights? Any strange noises?" "Yes, and yes. Also, there was a sweet-smelling smoke coming from under the hood." "What light was on? Could it be the temperature?" Gabby looked at the dashboard. "It's off now, but maybe it was the temperature one." "Okay. If that's what it is, I probably can't fix it right there. I'll bring the flatbed truck to tow it. Where are you?" "Halfway up Mountain Road. I pulled into a driveway. I'll be near the guardrail." "See you soon." Gabby started walking toward the road and called Tom to tell him she would be late. He didn't seem to mind. Ted locked his shop, put up a gone towing sign on the door, and stepped out back to his truck. Passing by the cot in the back room, he smiled. Gabby hadn't brought her car in for a while, and he hoped she'd need plenty of help today. He drove off toward Mountain Road, thinking about Gabby. It was funny. On a regular day, like when he saw her at the market, she looked like a 5 out of 10. Her face was round, her teeth stuck out a bit, and her mouth had a steady frown. She didn't have a bored or angry look, more like she was always a little annoyed. But when she dressed up for work, or like she did the night he ran into her at the steakhouse with her husband, she looked better. Then she was more like a 6, maybe even a 7. And when she changed into something special at home, well, she was definitely closer to a 9. She wouldn't be a perfect 10, not with her face, but when she relaxed and let go, she showed a different side. Ted felt a spark just thinking about those times. That day, seeing her in a nice outfit, rated close to 8 right away, made Ted think his day would get better. He hoped the back of her SUV was empty so they could leave fast. He stopped and rolled down the window. She walked up and said, "Hey, Teddy." Not many people called him that anymore, but she could. Gabby added, "It's just a little way up the driveway. Can I ride with you? The gravel is tough in heels." Ted let her in and looked at the driveway. It was the Peterson place. No one was likely to come by soon, and Gabby's SUV had dark windows, so it would be private. He climbed out of his truck and looked under her SUV's hood. From the smell and sounds, Ted guessed the engine was in bad shape. He tried starting it and heard the rattles. "It's probably ruined," he told Gabby. She nodded. "That's expensive, isn't it?" "Could be, but I can give you a discount to make it less. Without discount, it might cost $5,000 or $7,000. Gabby blew out her cheeks, then looked at him. "Discounts?" Ted smiled and looked down at her blouse. "Yeah." He held his hands up and warned, "You might want to take off that white blouse or I'll leave marks on it. Looks like your bra is white, too." Gabby laughed softly and glanced around. "Here?" Ted nodded. "Alfie Peterson works in the city. We have the place to ourselves. If your car has room, it would be easier." Gabby smiled and started to unbutton her blouse. The SUV's back was mostly empty and soon filled with warmth and closeness. Gabby told Ted to be careful with her makeup and hair. Even though Ted tried not to mess up her look, he knew that after they were done, she probably wouldn't be happy with how she looked. Still, she seemed very happy with how she felt. As he finished, he said, "You can use the bathroom at the shop to freshen up. I'll clean the mirror there for you." He thought to himself that they might have time for another round later in the small back room. This woman had endless energy, Ted thought. Tom smiled as Gabby walked into the office. She looked good. He noticed the lacy bra she was wearing, and then his eyes moved lower. He asked, "Wouldn't white stockings make that outfit stand out more?" Gabby grinned and said, "I had some, but they got messed up in the car, so I took them off." "Too bad," Tom said. "But honestly, your legs look great without them." She smiled wide and asked, "So, are we starting on the Blankenberg house today?" Tom nodded. "Yeah. Grab a lockbox and the checklists. I still have some things to finish first." "Okay, boss," she said. A few minutes later, Gabby was bent over in front of Tom, searching through a file cabinet. Tom sighed. He liked the way she looked in her skirt. Her skirt was short enough to show a bit of her undergarments. Tom adjusted himself quietly, trying to stay comfortable without drawing attention. Gabby said, "I can't find the checklists here." Tom grinned. "I moved them to the next cabinet over. Bottom drawer, same as before. I thought it'd be easier that way." Gabby stood up and asked, "Why didn't you tell me before I spent so much time looking?" I enjoyed watching you look. Can you blame me?" Tom replied. Gabby smirked. "Let me guess. You're not telling me exactly where they are, so I have to keep looking, right?" Tom smiled and said, "You'd better get started." The cabinet Tom moved the checklists to was right in front of his desk. That gave him a clear view of Gabby as she bent over to search again. Her skirt lifted just enough to show a bit of her undergarments. The Blankenberg house was a large building set in a clearing at the highest point of the land. It had a beautiful view of the valley. Tom needed to take detailed measurements soon, but he guessed the house was about 3,000 square feet with 5 bedrooms and wide living rooms. The two got to work right away. Gabby moved through the bedrooms while Tom checked the living area. Then Gabby wandered into the living room as Tom went through the bedrooms. They met up in the kitchen and started sharing ideas about how to arrange the house to make it look best for showings, using only what was already in the house. After that, they walked into the attached garage to see if there was space to store any furniture they wanted to hide during the showings. Gabby opened one of the garage doors and called, "Come look at this view, Tom." He joined her and looked outside. After a moment, he said, "This is a really nice place." Gabby took Tom's hand and pulled him outside. "I haven't been outside like this in a long time. Do you have a blanket in your truck?" she asked. Tom laughed softly. "Funny you ask. I took a blanket from the linen closet. It's on the deck out back." Gabby smiled, turned, and gently kissed Tom. Then she led him by the hand back into the house, aiming to get to the deck. They didn't need the blanket for long. Later, they found a good way for Gabby to stand on the bottom rail and lean over the deck's handrail so Tom could be at the perfect height to be close to her. Tom held her tightly, making sure she stayed steady. When their moment ended, he held her close. They used the blanket again to dry off a little, then tried to remember where the washing machine was in the house. Later that day, when they returned, a couple was sitting on the bench by the sidewalk in front of Tom's office. Tom and Gabby thought it might be a new customer waiting. While Tom unlocked the front door, Gabby walked over to the couple and asked, "Can I help you with something?" The man stood up, holding a thin envelope, while the woman held a phone, oddly pointing it at Gabby like she was taking a picture. The man asked, "Gabriella Patron?" Gabby was a bit confused. As a real estate agent, she went by Gabby because it helped people feel more comfortable. She answered, "Yes." The man handed her the envelope. Gabby thought it might have information about a property the couple wanted to buy or sell. As she started to open it, the man said, "You have been served." Gabby froze, her hand on the papers inside the envelope. "What did you say?" she asked. Neither the man nor the woman said anything. They walked calmly to a parked car nearby, got in, and drove away quietly. The man knew his job well. He had parked the car at just the right distance, with the front pointing out. That way, if the person they were dealing with got upset after being told the news, he and his wife could quickly get in the car and leave before anyone could catch them. Tom heard what was said and froze too, holding the office door open. Gabby pulled out the papers and gasped loudly. "What?" Tom asked. "What is it?" Gabby said, "Aiden wants a divorce." Tom took a deep breath and looked around the sidewalk. He told Gabby, "Come inside. Come inside. Let's get quiet and look over the papers." Still upset, Gabby walked inside, saying loudly, "I can't believe this. What is he thinking?" Once inside, Gabby quickly read the documents again, then gave them to Tom and tried to call Aiden. The phone went straight to voicemail every time. Tom looked at the papers carefully, then put them down. He said, "He talks about cheating, but he doesn't say my name. That's strange." Gabby looked at Tom, a little worried that he was more concerned about himself than the situation. Tom said, "I don't know why he even mentioned cheating. This state doesn't care about that in a divorce." He noticed Gabby playing with her phone in frustration and asked, "He's not answering?" Gabby replied, "He's probably on a plane over Colorado right now. I guess I have to wait for him to call me." Gabby pushed the papers back toward herself and sighed. First the car, now this. Today has been terrible so far? Tom laughed lightly and asked, "All day?" Gabby smiled, remembering, "No, Not all day. There were some good moments, too. Thanks for reminding me, Tom, Tom said. And he's out of town for a week, right? Gabby corrected him. 2 weeks, actually, which is kind of good. It gives me time to think, to plan. Tom agreed. Yeah, that does help. Gabby looked at the clock. I don't really want to work much more today, Tom said. That's okay. It's almost the end of the day and no appointments left. Let's go home. Gabby asked. You're driving me home, right? Of course, let's lock up. As Tom's car got close to the ranch, Gabby saw a dark smoke rising from the trees nearby. She leaned forward to get a better look and wondered aloud, is that a forest fire or something? Tom looked at the smoke and said, no, real forest fires make lighter smoke than that. That dark smoke usually comes from something man-made, like a truck or a building burning. As they got near the driveway of the ranch, Gabby looked at the smoke again and said quietly, oh no, do you think that smoke is coming from my house? Tom said, I don't know. I hope not. But as they got closer through the trees, it became clear. Gabby's house was on fire. Gabby sat quietly, watching the firefighters as they moved around. They mostly sprayed water on the trees near her house and put out small flames on the lawn. One firefighter came over to her car. Gabby slowly rolled down the window. The man said, sorry, Gabby. He looked into the car as if he expected someone to be there. Then, surprised, he said, oh, hey, Tom. Tom smiled and said, hey, Chet. Chet looked worried. Where's Aiden? He asked. Gabby said, he's out of town. Business. Chet seemed relieved. He didn't want them to have to search through the burned house later. After a moment, Gabby asked softly, what happened? Chet said, I don't know. Paul saw the smoke when he was delivering mail nearby and called us. When we got here, the fire was already big. There's nothing left to save. We're just trying to stop the fire from spreading to the forest. We'll wait until it burns down more, and then we'll use water to put it out. Gabby asked, you're not going to put out the fire now? Chet shook his head. We can't. We only have a little water with us. It would be a waste. I'm sorry, but there's nothing left to save. Gabby looked at the burning house. She could see flames through the walls and wondered how the roof was still standing. Then the roof shifted and fell, disappearing in smoke and sparks. Chet said, there it goes. Once the roof falls, it won't be long. Maybe 6 or 8 more hours. He looked at the fire and said quietly, I'm sorry. Then he turned to Gabby and said, call your insurance agent. They'll help you find a place to stay tonight. They'll also help with small things like buying some clothes or toiletries. Gabby nodded. Okay. She looked at the fire a little longer, then tried to call Aiden again. The call went to voicemail. She then looked through her contacts and called Shane, the insurance agent who handled her business. Meanwhile, Aiden was in a hotel room. He picked up his phone and heard many new message sounds. There were dozens of them. He checked his call log and saw many calls from different numbers, including many from Gabby. He thought about who to call first. Just then, his phone rang. Aiden saw his boss's name on his phone late at night and was surprised since work was long over. He didn't answer and let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, he listened to the message. His boss said, Aiden, I got a call from Chet Arbors. He's been trying hard to reach you and got my number from Gabby. Chet is the fire inspector in your town. He wants you to call him right away. Anytime you get this message, call him. The boss gave the phone number and said again, don't wait. Call him day or night. I hope all is well. See you in the morning. Aiden called Chet first and then called his boss to say he needed to fly home. At Chet's office, Chet sat across from Aiden and said, I'm sorry, but I called in the state investigators for this case. Aiden raised his eyebrows and asked, really? Why? Well, Chet explained, a lot of things about this case don't seem right. You were the last person in the house. Your wife got divorce papers while you were on a flight. Then the house burns down. On top of that, she said her car stopped working the same day, and your phone was acting up. The chance of all that happening together by accident is very small. Chet sighed and repeated, it's just too perfect. Aiden looked at him blankly and asked, too perfect? Chet nodded and said, yeah, it just fits too well. Aiden asked in disbelief, perfect for who? Chet thought Aiden would understand and hesitated a bit before saying, for you. It's all neat and clean. You tell your wife you want a divorce, then the car breaks and the house burns. Like putting full stops at the end of a sentence. Aiden was quiet for a moment, thinking. Chet added, there was a man in Malton who tore down his house the day his wife was served divorce papers. He owned a demolition business and everything was in his name, so legally she couldn't stop him. Strange, isn't it? All completely legal. Aiden looked at Chet quietly for a while. Finally, he said, "Interesting. You tell me a story about a cheating wife. I never said why I want a divorce. Did my wife tell you? Or did you know what she was doing?" Chet looked uneasy for a moment, then looked up and started, "Well, it's not that." Aiden interrupted. "You're saying I burned the house down, just to get back at her." "I'm surprised anyone could even think that," Chet said, shaking his head. "Aiden, I don't believe you did it, but I have to consider the possibility. I've seen some things, and I need to be sure." He leaned in closer. "But if you did do it, just tell me now. Please, tell me before they find any proof." Aiden answered, "I didn't start the fire, Chet. There won't be any proof." Chet replied, "You know, fire starters don't always burn up completely, Aiden. They leave traces. The investigators will find it. They will know. So if you tell me what happened, it will make things easier. Being charged with arson is tough if you don't admit it first." "There's nothing to admit," Aiden said. "If they find anything, it will just be from what was already in the house." Chet tried to stay calm, but was clearly interested. "What stuff?" Aiden shrugged and said, "There was gas in the garage for the lawnmower, maybe 3 or 4 gallons left. More gas for the weed whacker and chainsaws, about a gallon. Then there were solvents, lots of solvents, in the garage and basement. Things like mineral spirits, turpentine, acetone, big cans of those. Spray paint cans, too. Some in the garage, some in the basement." He shook his head. "Of course they'll find those things there. Every house has stuff like that. But I didn't do anything with it. I just left the house and drove to the airport, that's all." Chet nodded. "I believe you, Aiden, but I need to prove it. The experts know what to look for and where to look. So if you did something, now's the time to tell me." He frowned a little. "Or whenever you can. If you want to tell me, call me anytime, day or night. Your life will be much harder if you don't." Aiden looked away, then back at Chet. "Do you think my life could be harder than it already is?" He stared at Chet for a moment. "You know what's hard, Chet?" Chet stayed quiet, waiting. "Hard is finding out your wife is being unfaithful with many people around town. I don't know if you were involved, but I know a lot of people around here have been with my wife. People I see at the gas station, the grocery store. They look at me, they know what's going on, and they smile like everything's okay. That's hard, finding that out. Deciding to end that marriage, that's hard. It hurts, making that choice. You change your whole life, flip everything upside down. Sticking to that decision, that's hard. Being told that everything you own, your house, your memories, your keepsakes is gone. That's really hard, Chet. Losing everything like that is really hard. It hurts a lot. And out of everything that was lost in one day, besides my marriage and my house, it was my coin collection that hurt the most." "Your coin collection?" "Yes. It might sound strange, but of everything I lost, that was the hardest to take." Chet looked puzzled and asked, "Didn't you have insurance?" "Not for most of it, especially not for the old coins my grandfather gave me." Aiden leaned back and said, "I never made a list of everything. I never checked how much it was worth or wrote it down. I just kept it and loved it. Honestly, I can't even say exactly what my grandfather gave me or what I added over the years. I could try to contact some dealers and get some receipts, but the full list was with the coins, in the basement." He shrugged and looked down at his hands. He twisted them together and added, "That list is gone now, just like everything else." His voice cracked a little as he said quietly, "Gone." He looked at Chet and continued, "So, yeah, it's really hard. Losing all that is hard, but being blamed for causing the fire, that makes it worse." Aiden stood up and said, "I don't like being blamed. I'm leaving now." Chet didn't know what to say as Aiden started to walk away. Aiden stopped, turned, and said sharply, "That morning I just left the house and drove to the airport. That's all I did." Aiden had been worried about his wife after he found a box of condoms in a shoebox on Gabby's side of the closet. It was a Saturday, and Gabby had been yelling about seeing a mouse in the bedroom again. She was sure it had run into the closet this time. She really wanted the mouse gone. Aiden was trying to find the mouse's hiding place to set some traps. While moving things in the closet, he smelled something strange. Then a pile of shoeboxes fell over, and the box of condoms landed on the floor, right in front of him. It took him a long time to understand what this meant, longer than he wanted to admit. Gabby was on birth control pills, and on the rare times they were close, they never used condoms. So why was there a box of condoms in the house? The condoms were bright purple, which seemed odd to him. Why would anyone want that? And if 7 were missing from the box, why had he never noticed them before? Slowly, an idea started to form. At first, he wanted to confront her, ask questions, demand answers. But she was out showing a house at the moment, so he had to wait. As he sat quietly in the closet, Aiden thought it might be best to just put everything back and wait to see what happened next. Maybe this was something old, and she had forgotten all about it. He was surprised at how fast the box he found became empty and was soon filled again. He was even more shocked by how many condoms disappeared from the closet every week. Instead of talking to Gabby about it, since he felt he already knew enough, Aiden decided to hire a private investigator. He wanted solid proof, thinking he needed it to start the divorce process. Later, he would learn that in their state, it wasn't necessary to blame anyone to get divorced. The private investigator asked for 3 months' pay before starting. Aiden felt nervous but gave the money from his inheritance. His nerves were about the cost, not the results. He thought he already knew the truth. Still, since the investigator's hourly rate was less than his own pay, Aiden told himself it was a fair price. One day, after Gabby left for work, Aiden sat down and read the report the investigator sent him. He was stunned. The investigator had followed Gabby around town and noted everything she did. She went from house to house several times a week, showing them to different people. At first, it seemed normal that the same cars came to the houses where Gabby was. But the investigator soon saw many of the men who arrived were not really looking to buy a home. It looked like something else was going on. The investigator even had his cousin, who was a real estate agent, walk through some of the houses Gabby had been at on the same day. They found small trash cans with used purple condoms wrapped in toilet paper. Everyone in the area used septic systems, and they knew you never flush condoms because it can cause problems. Aiden was shocked by the list of names the investigator gave him. Many of them were men he knew personally. They were people he had worked with when he and Gabby lived in their RV and built their house. Dave, the man who drilled the well that gave water to his home, was on the list. Shane, the insurance agent who worked with them on their policies, was there too. And Paul, who built and took care of the septic system at the house, was named as well. It was hard for Aiden to believe that the men who had helped them build their life were now part of this situation. Every time he peed out the water he drank from the well, that water ended up in a pit built by a man who had also been very close with his wife at some point. She liked spending time with him sometimes. Aiden quietly thought that the man probably didn't mind the smell either. Then there was Ted, his mechanic. Ted was the one who fixed his cars, and it seemed he kept Gabby going too. Bruce, the carpenter, had built the house's frame, the walls, and the wooden floor. Aiden wondered if Bruce had been with Gabby too. Of course, there was Tom on the list. Aiden thought maybe Tom would take Gabby now, but he doubted it. Tom was married to the mayor's daughter. Aiden guessed Tom's life might get very complicated once people found out. He hoped Tom would face some problems from this. Aiden quickly looked over the list again. Was the roofing guy there? The siding guy? No, they weren't. But Gene, the plumber, was on the list. So the water went from the well, through all the pipes, into Aiden's body, then back out, and finally ended up in the ground. Every step of the way, Aiden's water passed through someone who had been close to Gabby. Lovely. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what he wanted to do. Suddenly, he sat up and checked the report again. Was the sheetrock guy on the list? No. Good, that meant he could look at the ceiling without worrying about him. He looked at the ceiling once more, trying to figure out his next move. Putting the report in a shoebox with some other things seemed like a good start. After that, he thought, he needed whiskey. Lots of whiskey. After 2 drinks and starting on his first beer, Aiden changed his mind. He moved the report from the shoebox into his suitcase, hiding it behind the zipper. He grabbed another beer and another whiskey, then sat back down in the living room. Even though he was already feeling buzzed, his thoughts kept turning. He wasn't going to accept this situation, that was for sure. And he wasn't going to sell the house. That would have been hard anyway, since only Aiden owned the land. When he and Gabby had built the house, he'd put her on the deed, so she legally owned half the house, but not the land it sat on. He thought about the land and how wrong it had been to bring Gabby here. They had met when he worked in the city. She was a city girl at heart, when his grandfather left him. The ranch, some money, and a big coin collection, Aiden was very happy. He loved the ranch and had camped there many times, both alone and with family. He thought Gabby would love it there too, but it didn't seem to him that she was happy. Not at all. No matter how things turned out, Aiden decided that Gabby would not get any part of the house or anything else he owned. He was willing to split the money they earned during their marriage, but that was all. His inheritance was only his, and he was sure he could keep it. Still, he realized he couldn't clearly show which coins came from his inheritance and which belonged to their shared money. When he saw that he might have to give her a good part of his coins, he knew he had to get rid of everything. All of it. By the time he finished his fourth beer, Aiden had started writing down notes. The feeling of being tricked, the pain from his wife's actions, and the anger he felt toward everything mixed and slowly made him think clearly. A plan started to take shape between the fourth and fifth beers. Aiden's mix of skills helped him through this. He had worked with riggers on business trips, so moving the heavy pool table with his tools was easy. He remembered drilling a strong anchor into the basement floor and choosing the right saw and blade to cut the thick concrete. Lifting out the 3-foot square piece of concrete with simple pulley tools was also straightforward for him. Digging a hole under the slab was no problem because he had done landscaping work. Helping his cousin's new business during college had given him experience. His job at the marina had also taught him how to protect odd-shaped things with shrink wrap, so wrapping the many metal boxes to keep them safe was easy. He used a heat gun and sealed each box multiple times to make sure they would last. Lowering the boxes into the deep hole, covering them, mixing the concrete, putting the slab back in place, and smoothing the surface all came naturally to him because of his varied background. Before finishing, he pressed 2 old steel pennies from 1943 into the fresh concrete. These pennies weren't worth much, but they seemed right for this moment. When he rolled the pool table back over the hole, he didn't bother to make it level. It was too bad, but the pool table's slate top would now serve as a marker, helping him find the hidden spot again later and the steel pennies he'd left behind. Aiden learned about fixing house electrical systems from his father. He worked with his dad from a young age and thought he would become an electrician. But then his father offered him a chance to go to college. His father was not only a very skilled electrician, which was a respected job, but also known as the area's expert in aluminum wiring. He was so good that fire investigators learned from him how to tell if aluminum wiring caused a fire in a house. The first time Aiden saw aluminum wiring at a job, his father sat down with him and said, "If you know what to do with aluminum wiring, it's safe. There are right ways and wrong ways to handle it. The wrong ways can cause a fire. Aluminum wiring got a bad reputation because many people did it the wrong way. Let me show you how mistakes happen and how to avoid them." Aiden spent a few days testing and learning. Soon, he set up outlets in his garage using aluminum wiring, and he could make them overheat and catch fire in a controlled way. He packed boxes with wood shavings and could watch the wiring get hot, fail, and start small flames. Over time, he noticed that the tiny pieces of aluminum would melt away completely, leaving no signs they had been there. He placed 3 of these risky boxes in his finished basement on a separate circuit. He replaced the proper boxes he had installed before with these problematic ones. Then he swapped the circuit breaker with one that allowed more power through than it should. He didn't see this as a crime, but as a kind of payback. Shane, the insurance agent, had been unfaithful to Aiden's wife, and Aiden felt this was his way of getting back at Shane. During the house-building process, Aiden and Gabby didn't argue much. Aiden managed the building team and took on several jobs himself, like doing the wiring, painting, and finishing the trim. He worked alongside the plumber who installed pipes throughout the house, the same person who, according to the investigator, had been involved with his wife. Most of the important choices about the house, such as the layout, windows, wood doors, and siding, were made easily by Aiden and Gabby together. But the wood paneling in the basement had caused a long argument. Gabby said it looked stupid and didn't want it in the house. Aiden said it didn't matter because only his work office, his pool table, and his coin collection would be down there near the boiler. He said Gabby would only go down there if she joined him to play pool, which she probably wouldn't do often. So, Aiden argued, the choice should be his. Winning the wood paneling argument helped now because the walls and ceiling in the basement were made of thin wood pieces that could easily catch fire. Aiden thought things would go well once the party started. One night in the garage, Aiden worked on the aluminum wiring. He found that by loosening the screws, just a little, the wires could overheat. He looked at Gabby's car and remembered how, as a teenager, he learned to work on cars with his friends. He knew exactly how to make Gabby's car break down by loosening a few screws. Just a little. When something went wrong with a car, Gabby would keep driving until it stopped working. So, Aiden thought, if he could make the car overheat, Gabby would handle the rest. Before his business trip, Aiden planned carefully. He set things so Gabby would be served Monday afternoon at her boss's office. He told the people helping him to serve her there first. If that didn't work, they were to try at her home. If needed, they would keep trying on Tuesday, Wednesday, and the days after that. Aiden knew it could be expensive if Gabby was hard to find, but he thought it was necessary. The night before his trip, Aiden went out to the garage and loosened a clamp on the upper radiator hose of Gabby's car. He tested it by twisting the hose to be sure it was loose enough to leak coolant, but tight enough to stay attached. He didn't know how long it would take for the car to overheat, maybe a few hours or several days, but he was sure it would eventually run out of coolant and overheat. After that, he went down to the basement and packed his laptop and some other important work things he couldn't replace. He left the rest of his personal belongings there, including many boxes filled with unsorted coins. Aiden enjoyed slowly sorting through the coins, keeping the valuable ones and selling the rest online. Aiden's side job was making a fair amount of money and had given him some interesting coins, like a rare 1963 quarter with a mistake on it, which he found among the mixed coins he bought in bulk. He felt sad about many things in his life, and giving up those unsorted coins was one of them. Who knew what special coins might still be hiding in that pile? Sadly, no one would ever know after tomorrow, Aiden thought. After packing his bags, one of the last things he did before going to bed was turn on the timers in the basement. The dehumidifiers would start around 10 in the morning after he left, and he had them set to run all day, no matter how humid the room was. Soon, the hidden traps inside the boxes would cause some kind of reaction to the wooden walls below, and Aiden wasn't sure what would happen next, but he hoped it would be impressive. The last thing he did was put his phone in airplane mode. He did not want any phone calls or messages about cars, legal papers, or houses tomorrow. In the morning, he planned to show Gabby that his phone was acting strange. Maybe she would give up trying to reach him after a while. If her life was already full of problems, not being able to reach Aiden might just be another small trouble to deal with. When people said the timing of everything was a little too perfect, Aiden honestly said, "That morning I just walked out the door and drove to the airport. That's all I did." Because it was true. Wednesday morning brought no relief for Gabby. She felt uncomfortable in a cheap, rough blouse that stuck to her skin. She smelled faintly of smoke and weak motel soap. Her house was gone. Her car would not start. Her husband was not answering her calls. But when she stepped into Shane's insurance office, her irritation changed into a sharp, focused hope. Yes, the house burning was a huge problem, but it was also a chance for a big insurance payout. She just needed money now. Shane looked up from his desk, his face turning pale. He did not smile or come out to comfort her. He stayed where he was, eyes shifting nervously to the open door of his assistant's office. "Gabby," he said, voice tight, "you shouldn't be here." "I have nothing, Shane," she said quietly as she sat down in the chair across from him. Her voice was low, using their past closeness to her advantage. "I'm wearing a cheap skirt. I need an emergency payment on the homeowner's policy. Write me the check." Shane swallowed hard. He opened her file on his computer, his hands shaking a little as he moved the keyboard. "I sent in the first claim an hour ago. I tried to get emergency help with moving costs." "And," Gabby said sharply, "the system kicked me out." Shane showed her the screen. A bright red message covered the rules. Restricted access, override denied. "What does that mean?" Gabby asked, leaning closer. "Fix it." "I called the main office," Shane said quietly, looking worried. "Gabby, the policy isn't under your name anymore." Gabby looked at him, her chest tightening. "I'm on the deed, Shane. I own half the house." "You did," Shane said gently. He took a folder from the drawer and slid one paper across the desk. 3 months ago, Aiden signed papers to transfer the property and insurance policy to a trust called the Heritage Trust. Gabby picked up the paper. Her name was at the bottom, written clearly in blue ink. She thought back. In May, Aiden had given her some tax papers while she was getting ready for work. She had signed them without reading. "You signed the transfer, Gabby," Shane said quietly. "You gave up your rights to the house. Legally, you have no claim to that house, the land, or the insurance money." Gabby sat very still. The paper felt heavy in her hands. She had no money, no extra clothes, and her credit card was full. She was completely broke. The doorbell rang when Gabby walked into the office. She straightened her shoulders and put on a bright, calm smile. If Shane couldn't help, Tom would. He was her boss and had always paid extra attention to her. Asking for an advance on her commissions seemed fair now. Tom was by the filing cabinets. When he saw her, he didn't smile. He looked worried, glancing toward the back room. "Tom," Gabby said softly, stepping close so he could smell her perfume. "I need a $10,000 advance. Today." Tom took a small step back. Things had changed fast. He wasn't looking at her like before. Now he looked at her like she was trouble. "Gabby, you know I can't do that," Tom said, rubbing his neck. "Not with the divorce and the fire. It's all too much." "It's an advance on the Blankenberg listing," she said, trying to touch his arm. "Just write the check from the special funds." "Take your hand off my husband," a firm voice said. Gabby froze. Sylvia came out from the back office. Tom's wife was tall and serious, with a sharp look. She carried her wealth and power proudly. As the mayor's daughter and main owner of the company, Sylvia didn't ask for things. She gave orders. Gabby pulled her hand back and gave a polite smile. "Sylvia, I didn't know you were checking the books today." Sylvia didn't answer. She walked to Tom's desk with a pile of papers and dropped them on the wood. "I was looking over the monthly costs, especially the staging expenses from the last 6 months." Tom swallowed hard. "Sylvia, I handle the daily work." "Quiet, Tom," Sylvia said sharply without looking at him. Her cold eyes focused on Gabby. "There is a $15,000 difference in the staging budget, 14 charges for fancy hotel rooms marked as client stay and staging prep. Do you know anything about this, Gabriella?" Gabby felt her heart beat fast. Those were the rooms she and Tom had used. I need to check my files." "Do that," Sylvia said quietly but firmly. "I want the receipts for all these charges on my desk by Friday. If not, I will think the money was taken without permission and I will call the police." Sylvia turned and left, closing the door behind her. Gabby looked at Tom, hoping he would help. But Tom didn't even look at her. Gabby stood outside Ted's auto shop, staring at her broken SUV. The air smelled of oil and old tires. She needed a break. Without a car, she was stuck, depending on a town that seemed to be turning against her. Ted came out of the garage, wiping his hands on a dirty rag. He didn't smile like he usually did. "Ted," Gabby said, lowering her voice to a soft tone she often used. She took a step closer, moving gently. "Tell me you fixed it. It's been a terrible week. I could really use a place to rest." Ted stopped a few feet away. He looked at her with no change in his face. "The engine is ruined. The main part is cracked. It's not worth fixing, Gabby. Can't you just fix it a little? For me?" She stepped closer again. Ted held up his hand to stop her. "No. I heard about your separation. I heard about the house fire right after that. I don't want to get mixed up in your problems." Gabby stopped pretending. Her face became serious. "I need my car, Ted. The repair and towing will cost $5,000, Ted said coldly. "Cash only." "I don't have $5,000, Gabby shouted, her calm breaking. "You owe me, Ted." "I don't owe you anything," Ted shot back, pulling a clipboard from under his arm. He held out a pen. "You have 2 choices. You either pay the bill or you give me the title to the car now to cover what you owe. If you don't do something by Friday, I'll charge you $100 a day for storage and I'll put a mechanic's claim on it," he said. Gabby looked at him with pure anger. He was serious. He had used her when it suited him, and now he was throwing her away. She grabbed the pen from his hand and quickly signed the title transfer form. "Keep the thing," she said sharply. Ted ripped the pink slip off the clipboard. "Clear out your stuff." Gabby walked to the SUV, opened the passenger door, and looked in the glove box. She took her sunglasses and some loose papers. As she turned, Ted held out a thick, sealed white envelope. "I found this under your seat while checking the floor," he said, handing it to her. Gabby took it and walked out of the lot quickly. Once she was around the corner, she ripped open the envelope. Inside was a clear, time-stamped photo of Tom's unique car parked outside a cheap motel on Route 9. A slow, cold smile spread across Gabby's face. The ashes of the ranch were still warm when Gabby arrived in a rideshare. Yellow police tape blocked the driveway. A woman wearing a white hard hat and a bright safety vest stood in the middle of the ruins, holding a clipboard. "Excuse me," Gabby called, using her best upset wife voice. "I'm Gabriella Petrone. That was my house." The woman turned to her. She had sharp eyes and showed no sympathy. "Vera Sterling. I'm a forensic engineer. The insurance company sent me," she said. Gabby crossed her arms and shivered in the cool morning air. My husband Aiden gave me divorce papers, let my car break down so I'd be stuck, and then he burned our house down because he was angry. You should put that in your report. Vera didn't take notes. She just looked at Gabby quietly. Your husband was on a plane to Colorado at 8:15 Monday morning. The fire was reported at 4 in the afternoon, Vera said. He set a trap, Gabby said, stepping closer to the tape. He's a builder. He knows how to do these things. He does, Vera said smoothly. She pointed down to the blackened basement. That's why the evidence I found is strange. If he's a professional, why would he be careless? Gabby blinked. What evidence? Vera stepped over a burnt beam and held up a plastic bag with a melted, twisted piece of metal inside. Aluminum wiring, she said. It was put in wrong on a single circuit. It got too hot and started the fire in the wooden paneling. Gabby felt a rush of victory. I told you! He messed with the wiring. The wiring alone wouldn't have started the fire, Vera said, putting the bag back in her kit. It took a very strong and steady flow of electricity to make the circuit overheat. I found 3 big, heavy-duty dehumidifiers plugged into that same power line. They had been running non-stop. Gabby frowned. We didn't own any dehumidifiers? Vera took a paper from her clipboard and walked up to the police tape, holding it out for Gabby to see. It was a bank statement. Then why? Vera asked, her voice sharp. Did you approve buying 3 industrial dehumidifiers with your joint credit card 2 weeks ago? Gabby looked at her name printed on the statement. Her face went pale. Aiden hadn't just set the trap. He had paid for it using her money. Gabby sat on the edge of her motel bed, staring at her phone. The walls of the cheap room seemed to close in on her. Aiden had set her up. He had taken the insurance money, made it look like her fault, and left her with nothing. She hit redial on Aiden's number. For the first time in 3 days, it did not go to voicemail. The line clicked open. Aiden, you complete jerk! Gabby whispered angrily into the phone, her voice shaking. You used my card! You bought those machines and wired the basement! I'm calling the police! There was a long silence on the other end. Then, a shaky breath. Gabby? Aiden's voice sounded broken, his words soft as if he was covering his mouth. Gabby, please. I can't do this now. The investigators, they're listening to my calls. Gabby stopped to think. If Vera Sterling's team was listening in, this was her chance to trap him. Tell them the truth, Aiden. Admit you set up the house. How can you say that? Aiden cried. It sounded like a perfect act of a sad, grieving husband. I lost everything. My grandfather's coin collection, all the things I loved went up in flames. Why would I hurt my own life? Because you wanted to hurt me. I just wanted to be free from the lies, Aiden sobbed. I didn't care about the money. I didn't even care about the $200,000 worth of old furniture we were keeping in the garage for Tom's business. It's all gone now. Everything. He ended the call. Gabby sat still, the phone against her ear. She blinked as her mind worked faster. $200,000 worth of old furniture. There was no furniture in the garage. There never had been any in the ranch. Aiden was lying to the police on a recorded call. He was pretending to be the sad victim, making up fake things lost in the fire to sound real. A quiet, breathless laugh escaped from Gabby's lips. Aiden had tricked himself. By saying Tom's business things had burned in the garage, she had just been given a big chance. If the things belonged to the brokerage, the insurance money would not go to the Heritage Trust. Instead, it would go straight to her and Tom's business accounts. She did not need Aiden's money. She planned to take money from the insurance company instead. Shane looked up nervously as Gabby walked into his office for the second time that week. She did not sit down. She leaned over his desk, putting her hands flat on the wood. Open my file, she said firmly. Gabby, I told you I cannot go around the trust, Shane said, leaning back in his chair. I don't want the house money, Gabby said, her eyes full of strong feeling. I need to make a new insurance claim for other things damaged on the property. $200,000 worth of old display furniture that belongs to my brokerage. Shane stared at her, shocked. There was no furniture in that garage, Gabby. I have been to your house. Aiden told the investigators it was there. It was recorded on a phone, Gabby said quickly, her voice growing tense. He made the list of items. You just have to send the papers through. That is against the law, Shane whispered, looking toward the door. I am not breaking the law for you. Gabby leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a fierce whisper. You send the claim, Shane, or I will go to your house right now and show your wife the messages you sent me from the hotel. I will tell her exactly what you asked me to do when she was not there. You will lose your family and your name by noon. Shane's jaw shook. He looked at her like she was someone he never wanted to see again. Slowly, beaten, he turned to his computer. He opened the forms for the claim. "I need your signature," Shane said quietly, printing a thick 3-page paper. "This is an official statement. You sign it knowing you can be punished if you lie." Gabby grabbed the pen and signed her name with a big, bold motion. "Send it." Shane clicked the mouse. The screen loaded, moving the claim to the company's waiting list. 10 seconds later, a new email popped up on Shane's screen. He opened it, and his face lost all color. "It's from Vera Sterling," Shane said in a flat voice. "She is holding the payment. She wants the original receipts and vendor lists for the $200,000 in furniture." Gabby didn't show any fear. "I will get them." Tom stared at the empty wall in his office when a photo was quietly placed on his desk. He jumped in his chair, and his eyes caught the picture right away. It was a clear photo of his car parked outside the Route 9 motel. He looked up. Gabby stood over him, arms crossed, looking calm and sure. "Where did you get this?" Tom asked, his voice shaking. If Sylvia saw, he would lose everything. "I need a favor, Tom," Gabby said quietly. "I want you to log into the brokerage system. Make invoices that say we bought expensive Italian furniture last month. Sofas, dining tables, old cabinets, adding up to $200,000. Tom's eyes grew wide. "Are you crazy? Sylvia's checking the books right now. If I make fake invoices—" "If you don't do it," Gabby cut in, tapping her finger on the photo on his desk. "This picture goes to Sylvia's work email, her personal email, and her father's office. You have 3 minutes. Tom wiped sweat from his forehead. His hands shook as he moved the keyboard closer. He opened the old accounting software, one Sylvia rarely used, and started making the fake papers. He typed in random codes, linked them to a fancy Italian importer, and made the dates show last month, before the fire. "Done," Tom said, breathing hard, and pressed save. He sent the PDF files straight to Vera Sterling's office. Gabby smiled and picked up the photo from the desk. "See? Not so hard. We will get a big payment, Tom. We'll be fine." Tom closed his eyes, feeling a short moment of relief. Then a sharp sound came from his computer. He opened his email. A warning in red letters showed on the screen. "System alert. Old ledger change found. Invoices flagged by main shareholder, Sylvia, for review." Tom looked at Gabby. His face went blank in fear. "She knows." Gabby left the supermarket, plastic bags cutting into her fingers. She was tired and lived on cheap takeout in a motel with a smoky smell. But the invoices were sent. The money was coming. She just had to wait. "Gabby." She stopped when Dave, the well driller, stood in front of her rideshare. He looked very angry, fists clenched. Paul, the septic worker, stood beside him. Neither seemed to be there for a friendly talk. "Dave," Gabby said, forcing a small smile. "What are you doing here?" Paul stepped forward and pulled a folded paper from his jacket. He threw it at her chest. It landed and slid onto the road. "My wife got the mail yesterday," Paul said, his face red with anger. "An anonymous letter. It had dates, Gabby, times, the exact motel rooms we used." Dave moved closer, invading her space. "I got one, too. Detailed records. Who else would keep notes like that?" "You kept a little list to use against us?" Gabby took a step back, her heart beating fast. "I didn't write those. I swear. Aiden must have hired someone to spy on me." "No way," Dave said angrily. "Aiden was out of town most of the year. You just slipped up, Gabby, and you kept the proof. If my wife asks for a divorce because of this, I promise you, you'll pay for it." They walked away, leaving her alone in the parking lot. The truth hit her hard. Aiden wasn't only taking her money, he was slowly breaking down all her friendships. He was making sure no one was on her side. Panicked, Gabby called a rideshare and told them to take her to the motel. She almost ran to her room, fumbling with the cheap key card. She slammed the door and locked it tightly. She dropped her bags on the floor and looked at the bed, hoping to just lie down and rest. She stopped. The bed was neatly made. Right in the middle of her pillow, placed with scary care, was a single, unused, bright purple condom. Gabby gasped quietly and pressed her back against the door. Aiden had been there. He could reach her anywhere. The purple item shattered whatever nerves Gabby had left. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't stay in the motel. Knowing Aiden was actively watching and targeting her, playing a dangerous game she didn't understand, made her panic. She had to stop the fraud before it ruined her. At 2 in the morning, Gabby let herself into the dark real estate office with her key. She didn't turn on any lights. The street lamps outside gave just enough light for her to move around. She needed to get into Tom's computer. She had to delete the fake Italian furniture invoices before Sylvia's tax people saw them in the morning. She got to Tom's desk and reached out to move the mouse. "Don't touch that!" Gabby gasped and jumped back. In the corner of the office, sitting in Tom's leather chair, was Sylvia. She was very still in the dark, with moonlight just catching the sharp line of her jaw. "Sylvia," Gabby whispered, her voice shaking. I forgot my planner." "You came to delete the files?" Sylvia said quietly, but with cold strength, like a judge giving a final verdict. "But you can't. I locked Tom out of the system at 6 this evening." Sylvia stood up, fixing the front of her neat pants. She stepped into the light. "I know everything, Gabriella. I know about your foolish affair with my husband. I know about the hotel rooms. And I know you forced him to change invoices to cheat an insurance company." Gabby couldn't say a word. She was completely trapped. "I don't care about Tom cheating," Sylvia said, sounding cold. "What matters to me is the trouble you have caused my company. You broke the law by sending false information through my network." "I'll quit," Gabby said softly, tears finally falling. "I'll just disappear." "No, you won't," Sylvia said firmly. "If you quit, I will give all the proof and original papers to the authorities tomorrow. You'll go to prison, and I'll leave Tom with nothing." "What do you want?" Gabby asked, her voice shaking. "Your husband owns a large piece of new valuable land for business," Sylvia replied. "I want the only right to sell it. You must get Aiden's signature on a legal paper giving us that right by tomorrow. Bring me the signed paper, and I will delete the fake files. If you don't, you go to prison." Sylvia walked past Gabby and stopped at the door. "Get to work, Gabriella." The heavy glass door clicked shut, leaving Gabby alone in the dark office. She stood frozen near Tom's desk, breathing fast and shallow. Sylvia's threat was in the air. You fail, and you go to prison. Gabby did not go back to sleep. Instead, she drove back to her motel, locked the deadbolt, and opened her laptop on the cheap desk. The clock showed 3 in the morning. She had only a few hours before Sylvia's tax team came. She called Aiden's number. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Still voicemail. "Aiden, please answer," Gabby said quietly into the phone, walking around the small room. "Sylvia knows about the extra costs. She wants the only right to sell the land. If you don't sign the paper by this morning, I lose my job. Just sign the digital contract. You sell the land, get the money, and never have to see me again. I'll send it to your email." She hung up, hands shaking as she downloaded the standard contract from the company system. She attached it to an email and sent it. Gabby sat on the bed, bouncing her leg nervously. She waited. 30 minutes passed. An hour. The sky outside her window turned a soft purple with dawn. At 6:15, a soft alert sounded from her laptop. Gabby jumped to check it. It was from Aiden. The email had no message, but there was a PDF attached. She clicked it, holding her breath as the document appeared on her screen. She scrolled quickly to the last page. There, on the signature line, was Aiden's digital signature with a secure stamp and date. "Oh, thank goodness," Gabby whispered. A shaky laugh escaped her lips. "You stubborn fool. You really signed it?" She hurried to the motel lobby, used the front desk's noisy printer to make a copy of the paper, and drove straight back to the office. Sylvia was already there, sitting at Tom's desk, drinking black coffee. Gabby walked in, her chin up high, the fear from last night gone, replaced by a strong feeling of confidence. She placed the printed contract on the wooden desk. "Exclusive rights to the property," Gabby said, her voice a little proud. "Now you need to do your part." Sylvia didn't even blink. She picked up the contract, looked closely at the digital signature, and tapped some keys on Tom's computer. "The old furniture invoices have been completely deleted from the local system," Sylvia said sharply. She put the contract in her leather briefcase and stood up. "Find a buyer, quickly." Sylvia left, and Gabby stayed in the office, leaning back against the filing cabinets. She had made it through. She didn't check the small page printed at the back of the contract with the security code. If she had, she would have seen a series of numbers showing the internet address used to sign the document. She would have noticed it didn't come from Colorado. Instead, it was sent through a hidden internet gateway connected to the motel's Wi-Fi. Ian Croft didn't look like someone who belonged in a burnt forest. He wore a neat dark blue suit and fancy shoes, now covered with a light layer of gray ash. As a city developer, Croft was known for being tough, practical, and rich. Gabby walked beside him, carefully stepping over the burned porch remains. The strong smell of wet ash and burnt wood filled the air. "It's a terrible loss, of course," Gabby said with a serious, professional voice. "But from a building point of view, Mr. Croft, it's a fresh start. The fire helped clear most of the debris. You have 50 acres of very good land with no restrictions. It's perfect for the resort you've been thinking about." Croft didn't smile. He adjusted his sunglasses and looked over the black trees and the deep hole where the basement used to be. The roof had fallen into the basement, but the local fire team had moved some big beams to stop the fire, leaving the concrete slab partly clear. "The place can work," Croft said quietly. He walked down the dirt slope into the shallow basement hole, his expensive shoes making soft noise on the ashes. He pushed a pile of wet ash aside with his toe, showing part of the concrete floor. He stopped and frowned, scraping his shoe lightly on the ground. "What is it?" Gabby asked, stepping up to the edge of the foundation wall. Croft pointed to a clear 3-by-3-foot square of concrete. "This part of the slab," he said quietly. "Its color and thickness are very different from the rest of the foundation. It looks like someone poured new concrete there just before the fire." Gabby stared at the square. Her heart jumped, then pounded hard in her chest. She knew exactly where Croft was standing, the back corner of the basement. That was the exact spot where Aiden used to keep his pool table, the same place where he spent many hours alone, sorting and looking through his grandfather's large and very valuable coin collection. Aiden had told her on the phone, "I lost everything. My grandfather's coins, everything I cared about, is in that fire. But coins don't burn." And Aiden had worked with concrete. He knew how to cut it. "Does it matter?" Gabby asked, trying hard to keep her voice calm. Her hands felt cold and wet. "Only if there's a hole or some old tank under it," Croft said as he stepped out of the basement. He brushed ash off his pants with quick, annoyed moves. "I like this property, Gabby. I will offer $2 million in cash today, but only if the soil and foundation tests come back clean. My team will be here in 2 days to take core samples." Gabby felt her throat dry up. $2 million meant saving her job and keeping Sylvia away. But if Croft's team drilled into the fresh concrete patch, they would find Aiden's hidden treasure. The coins would be officially recorded, tied up in divorce papers, or given to the Heritage Trust. 2 days is fine, Gabby said. She had just 48 hours to break through the concrete and take the coin collection for herself. The diner parking lot was empty except for a big pickup truck pulling a flatbed trailer. Sitting right in the middle of the trailer was a yellow mini excavator. Gabby closed the rideshare door and walked toward the truck. The cold night air bit through her thin jacket. Dave leaned against the driver's side door, smoking a cigarette. He looked drained, and when he saw her, his face twisted into a look of anger. "You've got a lot of nerve coming near me after my wife got that letter," Dave growled. He dropped the cigarette, stepped on it with a heavy boot, and crushed it. "I'm not doing any well drilling for your company, Gabby. We're finished." "I don't need a well," Gabby said, stopping a few feet away. She glanced nervously down the dark street to make sure no one could see or hear them. "I need the excavator. Tonight." Dave laughed, rough and cold. "Are you crazy? I'm not doing any favors for you. My wife already has half of my bags packed in the hallway." "I know," Gabby said quickly. "I know you need real cash, Dave. Cash you can use to leave on your own terms. Aiden buried his grandfather's coin collection under the basement floor before the fire. He covered it with fresh concrete. I saw it today." Dave stopped laughing. His eyes got serious. "Coins. Gold, silver, old coins," Gabby said, her voice urgent. "It's worth at least $1 million. He hid it so it wouldn't be part of the divorce. The insurance people are done with the place, but I have a buyer coming with special tools in 2 days. If we don't get it tonight, the money will be lost." Dave looked at the excavator on his trailer, then back at Gabby. "The property is under a federal investigation, Gabby. Using machines there is a serious crime. If they catch us, we'll be in big trouble." "We won't get caught," Gabby insisted. "It's 2 in the morning and the place is miles from any road." She stepped closer and touched his arm. He pulled back but didn't move away. "You break the concrete. I take the boxes out. We split it half and half. $500,000 each. Cash. No paper trail." Dave stared at her. You could see the fight inside him. Greed mixed with fear. He thought about his angry wife, his empty bank account, and the letters that had ruined his life. He let out a long breath. "Half and half," Dave said, his voice firm. "Half and half," Gabby promised. 30 minutes later, the big truck moved slowly up the long dirt driveway of the ranch. The headlights cut through the blackened, bare trees. Dave parked near the yellow police tape, turned off the lights, and climbed down. The silence around the burned woods was deep and heavy. Dave climbed into the small excavator and started the engine. The noisy diesel engine broke the quiet. Gabby looked nervously toward the road, but the trees swallowed the noise. She stepped under the police tape, entering the restricted area. This was the last line she had to cross. The excavator's tracks rolled over the burnt remains as Dave moved the machine toward the edge of the basement area. He lowered the bucket. The metal teeth lined up with the broken dark patch of concrete. Gabby stood on top of the foundation wall, holding a shaky flashlight. "Do it," she said over the loud engine. Dave pulled the controls. The bucket slammed down. The sound of breaking concrete cracked loudly. He pulled back and hit it down again. The fresh concrete cracked, breaking into sharp gray pieces. "That's enough," Gabby shouted as she hurried down the dirt slope into the basement. Thick clouds of dust rose up around her knees. She dropped to the floor, coughing, and started pulling at the broken concrete with her bare hands. She threw the heavy pieces aside, her nails scraping on the rough edges. Underneath the concrete was packed dirt. She knelt down and began digging quickly. After digging about a foot, her fingers touched something hard. Metal. "I found it!" she gasped, her heart racing. "Help me!" Dave turned off the excavator and climbed down into the basement, holding a strong steel crowbar. Together, they cleared the dirt away. It wasn't a crate full of supplies. It was a heavy steel box locked with a thick brass padlock. Gabby grabbed the handle, and together they pulled the box out of the hole. It dropped onto the smooth concrete floor with a deep metal sound. Gabby's eyes were wide, shining in the flashlight beam. "Open it! Break the lock!" Dave shoved the hooked end of the crowbar into the padlock's lock and pushed down hard with all his strength. The metal bent and stretched with a low groan. Then, with a sharp snap, the lock broke open. Dave threw the broken lock into the dust. Gabby dropped to her knees in front of the box. Her hands were scraped and covered in black dust and wet dirt. She did not care. $500,000 was just inches away, her chance to leave this nightmare behind, her win over Aiden. She flipped the latches and swung the heavy lid open. The flashlight beam lit up the inside. Gabby stopped breathing as her stomach turned cold. There was no gold here, no silver, no coins, nothing at all. The heavy steel box was completely empty, except for one piece of paper lying right in the middle. Gabby reached inside with shaking hands and pulled out the paper. It was covered with a clear layer so it wouldn't get ruined by the damp earth. On it, in bold letters, was one sentence. "Did you really think I'd leave them here for you?" The paper slipped from Gabby's fingers and landed on the edge of the empty box. Dave stared into the box, his chest rising and falling fast. "Where is it?" he asked, his voice shaky with fear. "Gabby, where is the money?" "He knew," Gabby whispered, the thought making it hard to breathe. "He planned this, the fresh concrete. He knew I would try to dig it up." Before Dave could say anything else, the woods around them suddenly came alive. 3 bright police lights switched on all at once, cutting through the dark and lighting up the basement with harsh white light. Gabby cried out, covering her eyes with her hands. Dave stopped moving, the crowbar falling from his hand and hitting the concrete floor. The sharp sound of a police siren came from the top of the driveway. "Put your hands up! Step away from the equipment!" a voice shouted through a loudspeaker. Gabby stepped back, her eyes stinging from the strong light. She saw the shapes of police officers running down toward them, their weapons ready. Behind them, Detective Wallace was moving carefully through the mess. Walking beside him was Vera Sterling, a company forensic expert. Vera did not look surprised. Instead, she had a cold, satisfied look. "Hold them," Wallace ordered. Strong hands grabbed Gabby's shoulders, turning her around and pressing her against the cold metal parts of the small digger. She gasped as cold handcuffs clicked tightly on her wrists. Nearby, Dave was held down on the ground, shouting that it was not his idea and that Gabby had promised him money. Vera looked down into the basement at the broken concrete, the empty box, and Gabby, who was covered in ash and dirt. "Changing anything at an active fire investigation is a serious crime, Mrs. Patrone," Vera said calmly. "Also, destroying any evidence is against the law." "I didn't start the fire!" Gabby yelled, struggling against the officers holding her. "He set me up! It was a trap!" "That's enough," Wallace said, stepping forward. He looked at Gabby with clear anger. "Read her rights." As an officer spoke the warning to Gabby, a figure stepped out of the shadows behind the police cars. It was Aiden. He wore a simple dark jacket. He looked pale, tired and deeply sad. He did not look at the empty box or broken ground. He only looked at Gabby, his face full of hurt and disappointment. He turned a little toward Detective Wallace. "I told you she was unstable, Detective," Aiden said quietly, his voice shaky enough for the nearby officers to hear. "I told you she wouldn't stop until she ruined everything." The interrogation room was very cold. The air smelled like floor cleaner and old coffee. Gabby sat at a metal table, her hands handcuffed. Her cheap shirt was torn and covered in dust and ash. Her fingernails had dirt under them. She was shaking badly. The heavy steel door opened, and Detective Wallace came in. He didn't bring any coffee. He put a thick folder on the table and sat down across from Gabby. "He set me up," Gabby said quickly, her voice shaking. "You have to believe me, Wallace. Aiden buried that empty box to trick me into going there. He loosened my radiator hose. He bought the dehumidifiers using my card. He even burned the house down to get the insurance money." Wallace just looked at her. "Why would he burn his own house, Mrs. Patrone?" "Because he found out about the other people," Gabby said, not caring any more about what others thought. "He knew I was seeing Tom and Dave and Shane. When he found out, he wanted to hurt me." Wallace opened a folder. He did not seem shocked by what she said about her relationships. "If he wanted to hurt you, then why did he sign the paper to save your job yesterday?" Gabby blinked, confused by the change in questions. "Because I begged him to. I told him Sylvia was going to fire me if he didn't sign it." Wallace took out a printed paper from the folder and pushed it over the metal table. It was the contract Aiden had emailed her. "You gave this contract to your boss, Sylvia, yesterday morning," Wallace said in a calm voice. "It gives your company the only right to sell the land. A very valuable contract." "Yes," Gabby said, nodding fast. "He sent it to me." "No, he didn't," Wallace said, his voice getting firmer. He pointed to the second page of the paper, the electronic certificate. "We checked where the digital signature came from. It did not come from Colorado, where your husband is now. It was sent through a local internet connection." Gabby looked hard at the numbers on the page. "The signature came from the Wi-Fi at the Route 9 motel," Wallace said, leaning forward and looking directly at her. "Your motel room, Mrs. Patrone." Gabby's breath caught. Aiden didn't just send her a signed paper. He had made it look like the signed paper came from exactly where she was. He had made fake digital proof that she had changed his signature to take control of his land. "He faked the IP," Gabby said, shaking the handcuffs on the table. "He's trying to blame me for forgery." "You were caught at 2 in the morning digging up a burned house," Wallace said loudly, his voice full of blame. "You forced a man to break the law, and now there is digital proof you changed a real estate contract to cheat your husband out of his land." Wallace stood and closed the folder. "Gabriella Patrone, you are officially charged with breaking and entering, messing with evidence, and real estate fraud. You'll be taken to the county jail to wait for your court hearing. I suggest you stop lying and get a lawyer." The county jail was noisy, smelling of bleach and unwashed bodies. Gabby stood at the payphone on the wall, her hands shaking so much she could barely press the numbers. She had only one call. She did not call a lawyer. She called Tom. The phone rang 4 times. Finally, a tired voice answered. "Hello?" "Tom, it's Gabby," she said quietly, holding the phone close to her ear. "I'm in county jail. They say I did something wrong, fraud and trespass. I need you to help with my bail. Please, I can explain." There was a long silence. "I can't help you, Gabby," Tom said, his voice cold and empty. "I don't have any money left." "What do you mean?" "Ian Croft found out the contract was fake," Tom said with no feeling. "He took back his $2 million offer this morning. He's suing the company for lies." Gabby closed her eyes, her stomach twisted in pain. "Sylvia fired me," Tom's voice cracked. "She locked me out, took all the money, and asked for a divorce. She made me leave the house. Now I'm staying at my mother's place. I have nothing." He hung up. Gabby held the phone, stunned. The group of people she had counted on, controlled, and used was destroyed. Tom was broken. Ted had taken her car. Dave was probably in the next cell. Shane was scared of her. She was completely alone. An hour later, a large officer unlocked her cell door. "Patrone," he said gruffly, "you're free. Someone paid your bail." Gabby blinked, shocked. She followed the guard through the processing area to the front desk. A bored bail bondsman waited there with a clipboard and a plastic bag holding her ruined clothes and old phone. "Sign here," the bondsman said, pointing to a line. Gabby signed. "Who paid for this?" she asked, her voice rough. The bondsman looked at a list on the first page and slid his finger down the names. Aiden Petrone, he said without looking up. He paid the cash fee about an hour ago. Gabby froze. The metal doors of the station slid open, letting in the cold morning air. But she couldn't move. Aiden had paid her bail, the same man who had planned her arrest and framed her for things she didn't do. He had just spent a lot of money to get her out. A sudden fear settled over her. Aiden didn't want her behind bars. He wanted her free because his plan was not over yet. The cold air in the park bit through Gabby's thin jacket as she stepped outside. She sat on a damp wooden bench, her arms tight across her chest, staring at the paved path. When she saw Aiden coming toward her, a fresh wave of anger swept through her. He wore a neat dark coat, looking calm and well-rested. He didn't sit down. Instead, he stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "You paid my bail," Gabby said, her voice sharp and full of anger. "You think this is a game, Aiden? You think you've trapped me?" "You are trapped, Gabby," Aiden answered calmly. Gabby stood up and stepped closer. She pointed her finger at his chest. "I'll tell the jury everything. You built the wire trap in the basement. You set up the dehumidifiers and loosened the radiator hose so I wouldn't be home. You burned your own house to ruin me." Aiden didn't show any reaction. He looked at her with a cold, quiet kind of pity. "You can say what you want, but the proof tells a different story." Gabby narrowed her eyes. "There is no proof. There is a credit card bill showing you bought 3 big dehumidifiers 2 weeks before the fire," Aiden said quietly. "And there's police camera footage of you using heavy digging machines at the fire site early in the morning." Gabby's hand fell to her side. "You brought the accelerant, and you changed the ashes," Aiden continued softly. "You have no way out." Gabby stared at him. The hard truth sank deep inside her. Every move she made this past week only made things worse for her. She had nothing left to use. Aiden took a folded paper from his pocket and put it on the bench between them. "What is that?" Gabby asked, her voice shaking. "A full confession," Aiden said, "admitting to the affairs, the fake property papers, and the trespassing. Sign this, and I'll drop the civil case. I won't ask for money. You'll only face the criminal charges." Gabby looked down at the paper, then back at his calm face. He wanted her to give up. He wanted her to choose her own downfall. "Go away," Gabby said quietly. Aiden didn't argue. He picked up the paper, folded it neatly, and put it back in his pocket. "I tried," he said softly. Then he turned and walked away. Gabby didn't break. If she had to face the charges, she would use the $200,000 insurance claim to hire the toughest lawyer she could find. She just needed the money to clear first. She walked into the insurance office that afternoon, wanting to hear about her claim. A receptionist took her to a plain room with no windows. Shane was already there, sitting at the long table. He looked very tired and sick. He would not look at her. The door opened, and Vera Sterling came in. Today she was not wearing her usual hard hat. Instead, she wore a smart suit and carried a thick folder. Behind her was a tall man Gabby did not know, also dressed very well. "Please sit down, Mrs. Petrone," Vera said firmly. Gabby sat, crossing her legs and trying to look impatient. "When will I get my payment? I gave you a sworn statement about the broken staging furniture." Vera opened her folder and took out the invoices Tom had forged. She spread them on the table. "These papers say that fancy Italian furniture was destroyed in the garage." "It was," Gabby said, trying to sound sure. Vera looked at the man next to her. "Mr. Rossi, can you check the serial numbers on these papers?" The man leaned forward and looked closely at the papers. "I already checked. I am the regional director for the company that imported this furniture. The serial numbers here match a large shipment of fancy furniture, but that shipment was sold to a 5-star hotel in Dubai." Mr. Rossi looked at Gabby. "That was 3 years ago." Gabby felt her head go numb. The room seemed to close in around her. She looked at Shane, hoping he would say something, but he just looked down at the table. "Tom made up random inventory numbers," Vera said in a cold voice. "Your boss got scared, Mrs. Petrone, and he made a big mistake." Gabby tried to speak, but her mouth was dry. She couldn't say a word. Vera took one more thing from her folder. She pulled out a heavy envelope with the official seal of the Department of Justice. She slid it across the table to Gabby. "The insurance company will not pay you," Vera said. "This is an official charge. You are accused of fraud and conspiracy." Gabby walked back and forth in her small motel room. She felt panic growing inside her. An indictment. Federal prison. This was not just a local problem anymore. The government was after her now. Suddenly, a sharp knock on the door made her jump. She looked through the peephole. It was Tom. She quickly unlocked the door and opened it. Tom looked worse than Shane. He had not shaved, his clothes were wrinkled, and he looked completely defeated. "What do you do in here?" Gabby snapped, slamming the door shut. "You fool! The serial numbers you used came from a hotel in Dubai. They're accusing me, Tom!" Tom stood in the middle of the room, looking down at the floor. "Sylvia took everything," he said quietly, his voice empty. "She took the company, the house, the cars. I'm going to prison because of you." "Because of me?" Gabby shouted, stepping right up to him. Her anger was strong and burning. "Aiden forced me. He lied to the investigators about the furniture. He set the trap and we walked right into it." "You made me log into the system," Tom said softly, finally looking at her. "You threatened me with that photo. You made me fake those invoices." "We faked them together, Tom," Gabby yelled, pushing him hard in the chest. "You backdated the files. You sent them out. We both tricked the insurance company because it was the only way to get money. Don't you try to blame me for everything." Tom didn't fight back. He closed his eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. Slowly, his shaking fingers went to his collar. He unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his wrinkled shirt and moved the fabric to show a small black microphone taped to his chest. Gabby stopped shouting. She looked at the wire, her mind going blank. "I'm sorry, Gabby," Tom said softly. "The lawyer in charge gave me a deal. I'm helping the state now." Before Gabby could say anything, before she could understand what just happened, the motel door burst open. The heavy wood broke as 3 police officers rushed into the room. "Hands behind your back!" a female officer shouted, grabbing Gabby and spinning her around roughly against the wall. "I didn't do anything!" Gabby cried, trying to break free. "He tricked me!" "You're under arrest for breaking bail rules," the officer said sharply, putting heavy cuffs on Gabby's wrists. "You're not allowed to talk to anyone involved in this case." They pulled her out the door. Tom stayed standing, looking at the floor. The holding cell at the courthouse was a small, cold room. Gabby sat at a metal table, wearing a loose, bright orange jumpsuit that didn't fit right. Her lawyer, a tired-looking man named Hayes, sat across from her, rubbing his forehead. "You need to accept a plea, Gabby," Hayes said plainly. He didn't try to soften the truth. "The prosecutor has the recording of you confessing everything to Tom. They have the fake computer logs for the property deal. They even have video of you digging at a fire site with a large machine." "It's just guesswork," Gabby said loudly, her voice shaky and scared. "Aiden tricked everything. He made me do it." "It's spousal pressure," Hayes said with a bitter laugh. "Spousal pressure? Gabby, look at the story. The jury will see a woman who betrayed her husband with many men in town. When he asked for a divorce, you tried to take his land right away. Then you planned to steal $200,000 from an insurance company." Gabby slammed her handcuffed hands on the table. "They can't prove I did it alone. Shane handled the claim." "Shane made a deal this morning," Hayes said, his eyes hard. "He's telling on you. Dave made a deal too. He's telling on you. Tom is the main witness about the money crime. Every man you were involved with has turned against you. You're all alone now." Gabby sank into her metal chair, her fight fading fast. The group she thought would protect her was gone. "If we go to trial, they will destroy you," Hayes warned. "I won't admit to crimes Aiden planned," Gabby said, her jaw tight with anger. "Let him speak. I want the jury to see who he really is." Hayes sighed and closed his folder. "The court will hear from him first." 2 hours later, Gabby sat at the defense table in the crowded courtroom. The heavy wooden doors opened, and Aiden walked down the middle aisle. He wore a neat dark suit. He didn't look at Gabby or the lawyer. He looked at the jury, his face calm but full of quiet sadness. He took the oath, sat in the witness chair, and the trial started. Hayes stood at the defense podium, his hands gripping the wood. He was fighting a battle he might lose. He walked toward Aiden and looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Patron," Hayes said loudly and sharply, "you know a lot about electrical work, right? And isn't it true you purposely damaged the wiring in your basement to cause a fire and ruin your wife?" The courtroom fell very quiet. Gabby leaned forward, her heart beating fast. Aiden didn't look angry. He looked deeply hurt. "I built that house with my own hands, Mr. Hayes," Aiden said, his voice firm but sad. "I did the wiring, I painted it, I loved it. Why would I destroy the only home I ever cared about?" "To punish your wife for her betrayal," Hayes said. Aiden shook his head slowly. He took out a folded paper from his pocket and held it up. "These are my flight records. I was flying over Colorado when the fire started. But more than that, Mr. Hayes, that house held my grandfather's coin collection. It was the greatest thing I had. It can't be replaced. I lost everything important to me in that fire. Aiden turned a little and looked straight at the jury. My wife cheated on me. That hurt me deeply, but it did not make me a criminal. Gabby watched the jury carefully. Two older women in the front row looked at Aiden with clear sympathy. A man in the back row stared at Gabby with open dislike. Aiden was very good at acting. He wasn't trying hard to defend himself. Instead, he let his sadness protect him. "He's lying," Gabby whispered to Hayes as he returned to their table. "Make them see the truth." Hayes sat down, tired. "I can't. He's too strong. The prosecution is finished." The judge looked at the defense table. "Mr. Hayes, does the defense want to call any witnesses?" "Yes," Gabby said quickly, standing up before Hayes could stop her. Her voice was loud in the quiet courtroom. "I will testify." Hayes grabbed her arm, his face pale. "Gabby, please don't do this. They will be very tough on you." Gabby shook him off and walked past the defense desk. She got into the witness chair and put her hand on the Bible. She was ready to tell the truth about Aiden, no matter what happened. The prosecutor, a sharp and serious woman named Vance, came up to the witness chair. She had no notes. She didn't need any. "Mrs. Patrone," Vance began, her voice strong, "you say your husband set up a big complicated plan to blame you. But let's look at what you did. Did your husband force you to keep a list of the men you spent time with at the Route 9 motel?" "No," Gabby said, trying to stay calm. "But the private investigator—" Vance cut her off sharply. "Did your husband force you to make a deal with your mechanic to avoid paying for repairs?" "That was my choice," Gabby replied quickly, her face turning red. "And the lockbox," Vance said, moving closer. "Did your husband force you to hire someone in the middle of the night to dig up a place connected to a federal crime?" "He told me the coins were there," Gabby said, holding onto the side of the witness chair. "He poured fresh concrete to trick me." Vance stopped moving. She looked at Gabby with clear anger. "He tricked you. So, you admit you went there planning to take $1 million before the court could divide it?" Gabby stopped. She had trapped herself. I was just trying to protect what was mine." "Let's talk about the insurance claim," Vance said, quickly moving to her next point. "You said earlier that your husband lied to investigators about some old furniture, but you knew the furniture wasn't real." "Yes," Gabby said quickly, thinking this might help her case. "He lied to the police." "And yet," Vance said, lowering her voice to a quiet, serious tone, "you signed into the insurance website, you convinced your partner to avoid the security steps, and you signed an official paper saying the furniture was real. Did your husband make you sign that false claim, Mrs. Patrone? Or did you do it just to take $200,000 from the insurance company?" Gabby opened her mouth, but her mind went blank. Everyone in the courtroom was looking at her. She stared at the jury, hoping for a bit of kindness, but instead saw only cold judgment. Gabby said shakily, tears filling her eyes. "I needed the money. He took everything else." Vance turned away from her and faced the jury. "No more questions, Your Honor." Gabby dropped her head into her hands and began to cry openly. The jury room stayed closed for less than 2 hours. When the bailiff said they had a decision, the fast reply felt heavy in the room. Gabby stood at the defense table. Her knees shook so hard she had to hold the edge of the table to keep standing. Hayes stood beside her, looking stiff and beaten. The man leading the jury, a serious man in his 50s, stood and gave the verdict paper to the bailiff. The judge put on his glasses and read the paper quietly, then looked down at Gabby. "For the charge of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud," the judge said, his voice loud in the silent room, "we find the defendant, Gabriella Patrone, guilty." Gabby gasped sharply. "For the charge of federal wire fraud, guilty. For the charge of tampering with physical evidence, guilty. For the charge of felony trespass, guilty." Each word hit Gabby like a blow. She had trouble breathing. The room seemed to spin around her. "The defendant's bail is taken away immediately," the judge said firmly, hitting his gavel. "She will be held in state custody until her sentence." 2 strong court officers moved toward her. One took her arm, the other gently held her hands behind her back. The cold metal handcuffs closed tightly around her wrists. "No, please!" Gabby cried, struggling a little as they led her away from the table. "Please, I didn't mean to do it!" As the officers walked her down the center aisle toward the holding cells, Gabby looked toward the seats. At the back, Aiden was sitting. He wasn't smiling or angry. His face was empty and calm. When their eyes met, Gabby silently asked for mercy one last time. Aiden stood up, turned his back, and walked out of the courtroom, leaving her behind. He didn't look back. The family court process was quick and strict. Since Gabby was in a county jail as a convicted criminal, she couldn't be at the final hearing. A lawyer chosen by the court spoke for her but hardly said anything. Aiden spoke for himself. The judge, a serious woman who didn't allow cheating in marriages, looked over the criminal charges. Gabby had tried to cheat the family's money, hide proof, and take things that were not hers. The judge showed no mercy. She gave Aiden all the land and all the real homeowners' insurance money. She made Gabby responsible for all the unpaid legal and repair costs. Aiden left the courthouse with his life legally back in his hands. 2 days later, Aiden stood by the blackened spot in the basement at the ranch. Ian Croft stood next to him, holding a leather folder with a big business contract. $3 million in cash, Croft said, giving Aiden a heavy pen. You clear the land title and my workers will start building the resort next month. Aiden took the pen but did not sign yet. He looked down into the ash-covered hole where his house once stood. The title is clear, Ian, Aiden said calmly and clearly. But there is one more thing before I sign. I need to make sure the land is fully cleaned up first. Croft raised his eyebrows. Cleaned up? The fire department already checked and removed all dangerous materials. There's an old septic tank buried in the back corner, Aiden said, pointing vaguely toward the ruins. It's deep underground and wasn't meant for commercial use. I want to hire my own team to take it out. I don't want any problems once you start building. Croft shrugged, not worried about the holdup. Do what you want. Just make sure the land is flat when my crew gets here. I don't care how you do it. Aiden signed the contract and gave the pen back. He looked down at the center of the basement's concrete base and finally smiled quietly. The excavation crew came early Tuesday morning. They brought a large, strong backhoe, not the small rental machine Gabby had used. Aiden stood near the woods wearing a hard hat and holding blueprints. He showed the crew leader an area with unbroken concrete next to where Gabby had hurriedly dug up a false lockbox. The first worker, a man named Paul, buried the main septic tank right under this part, Aiden said smoothly. It's deep underground. You'll need to dig down at least 10 feet to get past the vault, the foreman said. He nodded to his machine operator. The big steel bucket on the backhoe dropped hard, breaking the thick concrete slab with ease. The machine dug deep, pulling up heavy clumps of dirt and rock. They worked for an hour. At exactly 10 feet deep, the bucket's teeth hit something hard, making a sharp metal sound. Stop! The foreman shouted, waving his arms. Aiden climbed down the steep dirt wall into the trench. Half covered in dark, wet earth were 6 heavy army-grade metal crates. They were wrapped tight in thick, sealed plastic. Looks like old junk, the foreman called down. Want us to take it to the dump? No, Aiden said, brushing dirt off the top crate. It's old family stuff. Mostly just rusty iron from my grandfather's shop. I'll sign for it and put it in my truck. The team pulled the heavy crates out and loaded them into the back of Aiden's rented pickup. By noon, the hole was filled with fresh gravel, the ground smoothed over, and Aiden was driving away from the ranch for the last time. That evening, safe and quiet in his bright, clean new apartment by the sea, Aiden set the first crate on his kitchen table. He took a small knife and cut through the thick waterproof plastic. He popped the heavy metal latches and opened the lid. The light above caught the coins inside, making them shine across the room. The coins were perfect. Hundreds of silver dollars, gold eagles, and rare old coins sat guarded in clear sleeves. The fire had burned above them, police had walked past them, and Gabby had struggled at the dirt just a few feet away. Aiden picked up a heavy silver quarter, feeling its cold, familiar weight in his hand. His family's history was safe. The visiting room at the county jail was noisy and smelled like cheap cleaner and sadness. Aiden sat quietly on a hard plastic chair, staring through thick bulletproof glass. A heavy metal door slammed open on the other side. A guard brought Gabby in and pointed to the chair across from Aiden. Gabby sat down. She looked 10 years older. Her face was thin, her eyes dark with tired circles. The bright orange jumpsuit hung loosely on her thin frame. She looked totally worn out. She picked up the heavy black phone from the wall. Aiden lifted his own, his face calm and unreadable. My transfer papers went through, Gabby said, her voice rough and flat. They're moving me to the federal prison tomorrow. I know, Aiden answered quietly. I wanted to see you before you left. Gabby looked at him through the thick glass. The anger, pride, and strong tricks were gone, replaced by the hard truth of her punishment. "How did you do it, Aiden?" she asked, a tear finally falling down her cheek. "How did you know exactly what I would do? How did you know I would claim the insurance, change the papers, and dig under the basement?" Aiden did not smile. He did not show pride. He just looked at the woman who had caused so much trouble and hurt in his home. "I didn't," Aiden said softly. His voice was quiet and without hate. "I didn't know you would change those papers. I didn't know you would scare Shane or threaten Tom or bring Dave into the woods at night." Gabby looked confused. "Then how?" "I just gave you the shovel, Gabby," Aiden said. "Your own greed did all the digging." Gabby closed her eyes. A sad, broken cry came out as she felt the truth of his words. She had made her own prison with every lie. Aiden did not wait for her to stop crying. He did not offer comfort or say goodbye. He just took the phone away from his ear and put it down on the metal table, leaving the line open. He stood up, turned his back to the glass, and walked out of the room, cutting all ties to her forever. The damp, musty air of his mother's basement stuck to Tom like a heavy coat. He sat on the edge of a thin, worn mattress, staring at the bright screen of his phone. His bank app showed a balance of 0. He swiped away the message and opened an email from the state licensing board. It was the official notice that he was permanently banned from being a real estate broker. He was finished. No money, no job, no family left. Upstairs, the slow steps of his elderly mother crossed the kitchen floor. She called down through the vents, reminding him to take the trash outside. Tom lowered his head into his hands, feeling the shame burn in his chest. Just a month ago, he was a respected business owner who took what he wanted. Now, at 45, he lived alone in a cold basement, cut off from the town he once controlled. Far away, in the middle of town, Sylvia sat behind a big wooden desk in the new brokerage office. The nameplate on the glass door had already changed. Tom's name was gone. Hers was there instead. The takeover had been quick, legal, and without any kindness. She had taken over Tom's accounts, claimed his property in the divorce, and wiped away every sign of him from the company. She did not feel sorry. Sylvia felt only a cold, clear sense of relief, like cutting away something that had gone bad. She opened her email and typed a message to Aiden Patrone. She kept it short and simple. "Mr. Patrone," she wrote, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. "The land sale with Ian Croft is officially complete. Your money has been sent to your account. I have finished reorganizing my company. Thank you for helping me see the problems inside. I wish you well in whatever comes next." She pressed send, closed her laptop, and poured herself a glass of fresh, sparkling water. The problem was finally solved. The neon sign of the local bar flickered, casting a weak red light over sticky tables stained with old beer. Shane sat alone in a corner booth, staring into a cheap glass. He wore a bright orange vest over a worn-out shirt. The state financial board had banned him from working in insurance after he admitted to guilt. Now he worked nights loading trucks for low pay. The heavy wooden door opened, and Ted stepped inside. He looked tired. His hands were dark with grease, and he smelled of motor oil. The bank had taken his auto shop 2 weeks after Gabby was arrested. The trouble had scared away his customers, and he couldn't pay his big loans. Now he worked at a small chain store far away, helping as a basic technician under a young boss. Ted walked toward the bar but stopped when he saw Shane. Their eyes met, and the shared pain of their falls came alive in the dark room. Shane stood up, the chair scraping loudly. "You," he said with bitterness and anger, his voice thick from drink. "You pushed her too far. You took her car. If you hadn't cornered her, she wouldn't have come to me for the insurance money." Ted gave a bitter laugh. He stepped closer, his hands tight at his sides. "Don't blame me, Shane. You're the one who messes with the federal system. You lost me my shop. You dragged this whole town down." "You took my family away," Shane shouted, standing out of the booth. His face was red, his eyes wild with pain. The day an anonymous letter arrived, his wife left with the kids and moved away. "I have nothing left." Shane bent forward and pushed Ted hard. Ted didn't hold back. He swung his heavy fist and hit Shane's jaw. Shane fell back into a table, breaking some empty bottles on the floor. Shane jumped up quickly, grabbing a broken chair leg, and swung it toward Ted's head. The bar turned into chaos. People shouted and moved away as the two men fought fiercely. They weren't angry at each other. They were both filled with deep sadness and hopelessness. After 10 minutes, flashing red and blue lights from police cars lit up the parking lot. Officers came in and took the two men outside in handcuffs. Their faces were bruised and bleeding. The group that had betrayed each other was finally falling apart. A cool breeze from the ocean filled Aiden's new living room with the fresh scent of salt air. His house, made of glass and steel, stood tall on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. It was calm, safe, and completely his own. Aiden carried a soft velvet tray down the spiral stairs into the basement. He stopped at a heavy steel door and pressed his thumb on the fingerprint scanner. The locks moved back with a quiet hiss. He stepped into the carefully controlled room. It was very clean. Cabinets made of dark wood lined the walls. Aiden put the tray on the main desk and gently placed a heavy gold eagle coin in its spot. He spent 2 hours carefully writing down the details of the other coins he found in old crates. He noted their condition and value on a safe offline computer. When he finished, he picked up 2 steel pennies from 1943, kept inside a plastic cover. They didn't have much money value, but they were the most important items in his collection. He put them in the center of the display case, quietly remembering the trap that had given him a second chance at life. "Aiden?" a soft voice called from upstairs. He turned, closed the steel door behind him, and went up the stairs. In the kitchen stood a woman with warm, kind eyes and a real easy smile. She held 2 glasses of red wine. They had been seeing each other casually for a few months. Their relationship was simple, with no pressure or sudden demands. "I poured the wine," she said, giving him a glass. "You spent a lot of time in that basement." "Just organizing some old memories," Aiden said calmly. He took a sip and looked out the big windows at the sun setting over the ocean. He felt no anger or sadness. Instead, he felt quiet strength, like a man who had been through a tough time and had come out stronger and whole. Far away, heavy gates at a federal prison slowly opened with a deep sound. Gabby stepped into the bright daylight. 3 years had passed. She wore stiff gray sweatpants given by the state and a cheap white t-shirt. Her hair was thin and dull, and dark circles had formed under her tired eyes. She held a clear plastic bag with her release papers, a bus ticket, and $40. She got on the Greyhound bus, staring without focus out the scratched window as the bus took her back to the only place she knew. She had nowhere else to go. Her parole rules weighed heavily on her. She had to keep a steady job, take surprise drug tests, and give most of her pay to repay the insurance company and state for $350,000. 2 days later, Gabby walked into a small real estate office near the edge of town. She wore a simple used skirt suit bought at a thrift store. She went up to the front desk, holding a printed resume. "I'm here to see the managing broker," Gabby said, trying to smile politely. "I want to apply for the administrative assistant job." The broker, an older man dressed in a sharp suit, came out of his office. He took the resume from her and looked at the name at the top. His eyes quickly met hers. He recognized the tired face under her light makeup. "Gabriella Patron?" the broker said loudly, his voice filling the quiet office. Some workers glanced over at them. "Yes," Gabby said, her smile fading. "I know I have a gap in my work history, but I have lots of experience in—" The broker let out a short, sharp laugh. He dropped her resume onto the desk like it was dirty. "You're the one who lied about the Croft contracts and tried to trick the government." "I've paid my debt," Gabby whispered, feeling a hot rush of shame. "I just need an admin job." "Leave my office," the broker said, his voice full of disgust, "or I'll call the police and have you banned from here. We don't hire people with a criminal record." Gabby froze for a moment as everyone in the office stared at her. She turned and almost ran out the glass doors. The bell above the door rang sharply like it was mocking her. The town had not forgotten. It never would. The fluorescent lights of the roadside diner flickered in a weak yellow glow over the cracked floor. It was 3 in the morning. The diner was old and sad, far from town. It was the only place desperate enough to hire someone with her record. Gabby knelt on the cold bathroom floor, her knees sore from the hard tile. She pushed the stiff brush into the toilet bowl and scrubbed hard at the stains. The strong smell of bleach burned her nose and made her eyes sting. She stopped and dropped the brush into a bucket. She looked at her hands. Her skin was dry and cracked from always working with cheap cleaning chemicals. Her cuticles were sore, and her nails were chipped and broken. A clear memory came to her. Her hands on the steering wheel of her SUV, her nails neat and clean, a big diamond ring shining in the morning sun as she drove away from the ranch. She remembered wearing a white blouse and plaid skirt, full of confidence and belief she could control everything around her. Now she wore a stained, loose uniform shirt that smelled of old grease and coffee. Gabby stood up from the floor and walked to the mirror above the sink. She stared at herself. The woman looking back was tired and older than before. The charm she once used to handle Ted, Tom, and Shane was gone. This was her life now. There was no way out. No secret money saved. Only the diner, the harsh cleaning chemicals, and a big debt that would stay with her forever. She wiped a dirty line from her cheek, picked up the heavy mop bucket, and opened the bathroom door to start her work on the dining floor. The bell on the door jingled. Gabby did not look up. She pushed the wet mop along the aisle between the worn booths. Her back ached from the repeated movement. Heavy boots stepped on the mat at the door. The customer walked past the counter and stopped in the aisle where Gabby was mopping. "Excuse me," Gabby said quietly, eyes on the wet floor. "The floor is wet." The customer stayed still. Gabby sighed and looked up. The mop handle slipped from her hand and hit the floor loudly. It was Dave. He looked older, with deeper wrinkles around his mouth and gray at his temples. He had spent 6 months in county jail for a wrong he was involved in. That time in jail ruined his well-drilling business and ended his marriage. Dave looked at her. He saw the worn janitor's uniform, the thin face, and the cheap name tag on her shirt. Gabby stood still, her heart pounding. She waited. Maybe he would yell at her. Maybe he would be angry or blame her. Part of her wished he would let out his anger. Part of her hoped that sharing the pain of their loss might bring them closer. Dave didn't shout. His face didn't show anger. Instead, it looked worse, full of deep dislike. He reached into the pocket of his heavy jacket and pulled out a wrinkled $5 bill. He didn't give it to her. He held it out over the wet floor, opened his fingers, and let the bill fall. It landed in the dirty, soapy puddle near Gabby's feet. Dave stared into her eyes for a long, hard moment. Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked out the door. The bell jingled in the quiet room. Gabby stood alone in the aisle. Slowly, with shame, she dropped to her knees on the cold floor and picked the wet $5 bill out of the mess. The diner was almost empty at 4 in the morning. Gabby moved from table to table, carrying a gray plastic bin full of dirty plates and half-finished coffee cups. Her hands ached with a dull pain. She stopped at a booth near the window. A family had left 10 minutes before, leaving a mess of spilled syrup and crumpled napkins behind. Gabby started cleaning, scraping leftover food into the bin. She lifted a heavy coffee mug. Under it were wrinkled dollar bills left as a small tip. Gabby picked up the bills, her fingers brushing something hard and cold under a napkin. She moved the paper aside. It was a coin. She held it up under the bright, harsh light. It was a heavy silver quarter. The edges were worn, and the surface was dark, showing signs of age and history. Gabby caught her breath. Her hands shook as she turned the coin over, feeling its cold weight against her rough skin. It was the kind of coin Aiden used to collect. Suddenly, memories came rushing in. She thought of quiet evenings at the ranch, Aiden sitting at his desk in the basement, carefully looking at his silver quarters through a magnifying glass. She remembered his calm voice, the safety of their home, and the steady comfort she had been given. But she had been restless. She had wanted something else. She had lost a man who cared for her, a lovely home, and a safe future for moments that brought only pain. Gabby held the silver quarter tightly against her chest. A soft, painful sob escaped her throat. She closed her eyes as tears began to fall, warm and fast down her cheeks. The harsh, hard truth of her loss hit Gabby like a blow to the chest. She had given up everything and ended up with nothing. She wiped her eyes quickly with the back of her hand, her chest still moving with soft, uneven sobs. In her palm lay a silver quarter. It was just a coin, left by a stranger as a small tip. But to Gabby, it felt like a real piece of the life she had lost. She didn't put it in the tip jar on the counter. Instead, she slipped the quarter into the deep pocket of her apron, wanting to keep hold of that memory. Suddenly, a sharp voice called out, "Patron!" Gabby jumped. The diner manager, a heavy, forever angry man, came out of the back office. His face was red, and he pointed right at her chest. "What did you just put in your pocket?" he asked, stepping closer. "Nothing," Gabby said, stepping back. Just a piece of trash." "I was watching the security cameras," the manager said loudly. "I saw you clear table 4. I saw you put the tip in your pocket. That money belongs to the waitstaff, you thief." "It was only a coin," Gabby said, her voice shaking with fear. She quickly reached into her apron and pulled out the silver quarter, holding it out with a trembling hand. "Take it! I just want the coin! Please, I can't lose this job. I have to make my payments." The manager didn't reach for the coin. He looked at her with full dislike. "You have a record for cheating people. I gave you a chance, and now you steal from my waitresses in your third week? Empty your apron and leave." "Please," Gabby begged again, tears falling once more. "I didn't take the bills, just the coin, please. Out!" the manager shouted, pointing toward the glass door. "You're fired. If you don't leave in 10 seconds, I'm calling your officer and telling them you steal from the register." Gabby looked at him, feeling the final sound of his words, as the empty diner stood silent. She set the silver quarter on the edge of the table. She untied her old apron and dropped it on the floor. Then she turned and walked to the door. She pushed it open and stepped outside into the cold night. It had started to rain. The cold rain fell fast, soaking through her light jacket as she wrapped her arms around herself. She shivered and started to walk along the side of the highway. She was left with no job, no pride, and very little hope. Far away, the morning sun rose over the ocean. Aiden stepped out onto the large balcony of his home. The ocean breeze gently moved his hair. He smiled as the sun warmed his face. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a shiny silver quarter, and flipped it into the air. The coin caught the sunlight, shining brightly against the blue sky, then landed neatly in his open hand. Aiden closed his fingers around it and smiled wider. He turned and walked back into his calm, lovely home. Leaving the sun behind, he stepped into his peaceful life. The difference between his quiet world and Gabby's cold downfall was clear. This shows the true cost of betrayal. Now, a question for everyone watching the Infidelity Director channel today. Do you think Gabby's hard fall was the right consequence for what she did? Or did Aiden's careful plan go too far? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Remember, honesty and trust are the base for any good life. When we choose to be dishonest, we end up trapping ourselves in the problems we create.